So, hey Mr. Bleeker. Before going directly into animal-like protists, we're going to get some background info about protists themselves. They're eukaryotes, meaning they have a nucleus, and this sets them apart from prokaryotes because prokaryotes don't have a nucleus. But they can't be placed into the kingdoms Animalia, protists, fungi, or plantae, because although they do share characteristics with them, there are factors such as being unicellular sometimes that set them apart from all of these different kingdoms. But one thing that you have to remember is that only some protists are unicellular, not all of them. So there's a key point right there. I would highlight this if I were you, or write it down. Okay, we're going to go straight into our lesson. Animal-like protists, also known as protozoans. Proto meaning first, and zoa meaning animals. So that's an easy way to remember it. First, animals. They're unicellular, as I said before. Not all of them. Some of them. Not all of them. And they're heterotrophs, meaning that they eat other organisms for food. And that's an easy way to remember that is by using hetero, meaning other. So other organisms, they eat them for food. There are 4 phyla of animal-like protists, and it's determined by their movement. So zooflagellates, they move using flagella, which is in the name. Flagella, they're like whip-like things that help the zooflagellates move. Sarcodines, they have more of an amoeboid motion. They use extensions of their cytoplasm called pseudopods to move around, and it's pretty cool, but we're not learning about that today. And then ciliates, we're going to go into that later on because that's our main topic. They use cilia, again in the name, and they're more like hair-like extensions. We'll talk about them later. Sporozoans, they're immotile. They need other factors to help them move. So say if they were in their human body, they would need your blood to move around. They can't move by themselves. So sporozoans, they don't have a cell wall, and they only have one type of thing that helps them to move. They're also thought to have evolved into water organisms. So they're like the midway point in between prokaryotes and modern day organisms, like animals. So we're going to get into the hot topic of our lesson here, which is the phylum Ciliophora. Oh no, I lost it. Oh no, oh no. It's right there, and we sort of lost it. We got our screens a bit mixed up there. In the phylum Ciliophora, they're also known as ciliates, as I said before, and they have hair-like extensions coming out of the cell, similar to flagella, but flagella there's only like 1 or 2. Here we have like hundreds, like around the whole cell. They use the cilia for movement and for feeding, so they grab whatever they're eating and it goes through the oral pore and whatnot, and we'll talk about that later. The internal structure of the cilia is identical to the flagella, but as I said before, there's a lot of cilia, and flagella, there's like 1 or 2. Ciliates, they're found in both fresh and salt water, and most ciliates, they're free-living. They don't exist as parasites or symbionts, so they can't really cause disease or harm. Many ciliates, they have a sculptured wall around them. It's called a policel, and we're going to see that later, but right now we're going to look at one type of example of the Ciliophora. So as you can see, it's like right there, right at the end, right up here. Let's get our advertisement out of the way. Can't really see them here. Yeah, a bit around the edges over there, but not really fully. There's a better picture coming around. See, right there. It's like at the edges. They're like hair-like extensions, but they're moving really fast, so it's really hard to see them. See, right there. This is a better example. It's like all around here. all around there. And as you can see, it's helping them move around. You can see like so many of them. Okay, I guess we're done with that example. And we're gonna move on. So some examples of this organism of the organisms that fit into this phylum, are Paramecium, Stenton, Spirostomum, and Forticella. All forms are multinucleate, multi meaning many, and nucleate meaning they have a lot of nucleuses. They have at least one macronucleus, which is a big nucleus, and then one or more micronucleuses, meaning they are small, and it's more sort of like a backup plan to the macronucleus. So if something happens to the macronucleus, the micronucleus takes over. Most are holozoic, or for lack of a better word, they're heterotrophic. But few are parasitic, so that means that they can't really cause disease. Many ciliates, they have a sculptured, rigid outer covering called a pellicle. And then Paramecium, which is an example of Ciliophora, they use trichocytes for prey capture. So it's like a weapon against anything that harms them or to capture their prey. And they don't have any chloroplasts. That sets them apart from plant-like protists because they can't perform photosynthesis, making them obviously heterotrophic. So let's go into detail here and talk about the anatomy of a paramecium. They have cilia, as I said before, all around the outer edge, right there, right there. And there's many of them, unlike zooflagellates that only have 2 or 3 flagella. These have a lot of cilia. And as right in here, they're like hair-like appendages that help the paramecium move food into the oral groove which is right here. And it helps the oral groove helps collect and direct food into the cell's mouth. So you can pretty much say this is the cell's mouth. Then we have the gullet over here. This is where all the food collects, and then it forms little packages called food vacuoles, which are storages for the food, so when the cell needs them, it uses the food vacuole. We have the anal pore here, and if anal isn't enough, you see that it disposes the waste of the paramecium. Well, you can't really see it in the paramecium, but they have a pellicle, which is a membrane covering that protects the paramecium like a skin, so it's like a second skin. And then we have the contractile vacuole, which is a sun, pretty much. It's a bit obvious right here. And then it collects all the water of the paramecium, and then it disperses it. So it forces it out. We have an example of that afterwards. I'll show you. And then the cytoplasm, it's just there. It's like a fluid. And then we have our trichocytes, which are all these little red things at the edges. And it's used for defense, so it's like a weapon. And you can just remember it by like trident, so trichocyst, trident, you know, like a weapon. And then we have our macronucleus, the most important part. And this is a big one right here. And then we have our micronucleus, which is a small right now here. And it's the macronucleus, it performs normal cell functions, and then the micronucleus is responsible for cell division. So we have an example right here. There's the contractile vacuole, and you can see it like it has water in it, and then it just pushes it out of the cell. Right there. Let's see that again. This is not going to work, is it? There it goes again. So, there we go. Then we have our other example. You can see the cilia really well in this one. See the cilia all over here. Let's get our advertisement out of the way. All over here. And then you can see the things moving inside of the cytoplasm. And you can see like things like actually passing through. If you actually look really closely, there's one. There's one right there. There you go. But we chose this example because the cilia is so obvious. You can see it moving right there. Like all around. Okay. I'm going to pass this over to Alice now. Here we go.
Hello, Mr. Bleeker. Okay, so, a popular question. Can ciliates cause diseases? So, believe it or not, paramecia are helpful to living things. As we said before, it's a heterotroph and it feeds on like bacteria, which may cause sickness to other organisms. They're also like free living, like non-pathogenic organisms, so they can't live off a host cell and cause like disease. And lastly, they favor like acidic environments, which is like the opposite from the human body, because the human body is like basic. If you like refer back to Science 10, acidic solutions are like sour and basic solutions are slippery. For example, like soap would be a basic solution. It proves that ciliates like won't be able to like survive in a human body. Moving on. And some interesting facts. The paramecium, like they can't see, taste, touch, or hear, although they can have some sense of movement because it responds when it bumps into something. Also, it can sense glutamate, which is a chemical, and this chemical attracts the paramecia as it may signify the presence of food. And Daniel Fells, who's a scientist, observed the ability of paramecium caudatum, communicating through glass because the glass stopped the transfer of chemical signals. He hypothesized that the paramecium used a form of weak electromagnetic radiation, so-called biophotons, to communicate, which is awesome. And other facts. They can move 12 times their own body length every second. How scary is that? They're also being tested to see if they can learn, and it is now believed that they can be taught to differentiate different levels of brightness. It's almost the same as the eye spot in plant-like protists, such as like Euglena. So that's pretty sweet.
Okay. That's it for this lesson, people.
I hope you learned something interesting from us, Mr. Bleeker, and I hope you enjoyed our show thing.
See ya. Bye.